I'm Natalie Sturgeon and welcome to Southwest Magazine. My guest today is Laura Macfarlane, the Executive Director of Home Support Services. Laura gave a presentation to St. Stephen residents about the future of Lana-Sarah Hall. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
So tell me about Home Support Services, a little bit about yourself, what you do and what that industry is.
Certainly. Home Support Services is a nonprofit organization. We've been in Charlotte County since October 1978. We provide care and support to seniors and adults living with disabilities to assist them with remaining in their homes as long as they wish. So that entails in-home personal support worker care. We administer the Meals on Wheels program throughout Charlotte County. We also have advanced foot care nursing. So we have clinics in St. Andrews and St. Stephen for the foot care, and we do in-home for seniors who can't get out of their homes to access that service. We also are an accredited provider of the PSW Foundation course. So we're trying to work hard to stabilize that critical part of the senior sector, the personal support worker, healthcare worker.
And so how did you find yourself sort of involved with Lana-Sarah Hall? And we know that they were going to close in the summer, and you and a bunch of other stakeholders have sort of stepped up to figure out a solution. So how did you get involved with Lana-Sarah Hall?
So I certainly didn't have any knowledge of what was happening there. We're a busy organization, and that was taking our time. And we heard about, that they were potentially needing to close the doors. And as the director of a nonprofit, I thought it appropriate that I reach out because Lana-Sarah Hall is also a nonprofit. And so I picked up the phone and called and said, hey, this is who I am. Is there anything we can do to help? So not having a clue at that point, just knowing that I did not want to see another nonprofit close their doors in Charlotte County. So it kind of grew from there. I had some good conversations with their board, a few of their board members, and we met, and this project kind of came together out of a vision that Lana-Sarah Hall could be merged with the services that we already provide, and that would, if we could be successful with this type of a model, that would actually provide sustainability for both nonprofits. And I am passionate about senior care. I am also very passionate about nonprofits and the role that they play in community. So I'm always looking for ways to make home support services sustainable and remain a strong presence in our community. And I just think that this merging of the two organizations could provide a really great solution for Lana-Sarah Hall and potentially sustain two long-standing institutions in our community. So.
And could you tell us a little bit about Lana-Sarah Hall, what it is now, and sort of what it provides to the community?
So what it is now, it's Lana-Sarah Hall was gifted to the community by Mariah F. Ganong in 1935. So we're now in 2026, and for all intents and purposes, it's remained, served the same purpose as it did in 1935 when it was entrusted to the community. But in 2026, things have changed. Things are much more expensive. Everybody's struggling with the increased cost of living, increased staffing costs. It's just a difficult environment for business in general, and a nonprofit operates the same as any business. So it needs to adapt, and it would be lovely. I think everybody would agree it would be lovely to stay the same forever, but we have to adapt to make sure that it does stay in the community forever. So I think that all of us involved feel like, it can't be the same in 2026 as it was in 1935, but we can go forward and that intent can remain exactly the same. that original intent, which was to provide a safe, respectful, dignified home environment for seniors and where they're cared for when they become ill. So we can do that.
And you said in the meeting, that it's not sustainable. I was wondering if you could explain what you meant by that.
So it's not sustainable in that the operating costs have exceeded the costs that you can charge for rent, which is a pretty typical scenario. Rents are going up everywhere, but seniors in particular, most seniors in our area live on a very fixed income. So it's just not sustainable. You can't increase the rents so that they meet the operating costs. It's an old building. There have been really big structural issues that have had to be remediated over the years. So, that eats into all of those expenses. And as a nonprofit, you can't operate in deficit. No business can, but it's really important to be responsible with that trust. And it's just, so when I say it's not sustainable as it is, it's not sustainable in Charlotte County. Those rents are reasonable now, but in order to cover the operating costs, they would not be reasonable for most folks.
And you unveiled a bit of a model that you're sort of hoping to bring to the community. I wonder if you could walk me through that in terms of how you foresee it evolving in the future.
I do. So the model that we've come up with is to keep the Laura Macfarlane Hall building, modify it so that it meets accessibility requirements and accessibility standards, because it's a beautiful old house, but it's not so accessible if you're in a wheelchair, for example. So it needs some modifications. The model also has on the adjacent lot a new build that would take up that corner lot, and that would house be new office space for home support services so that we could efficiently administer both facilities, which is a cost-saving measure. But it also allows the main ground level floor of that building, as we envision it, is a space in the community for senior services. So we would have a large senior activity center where we could have senior programming or do, different types of activities geared towards seniors. We would also have space for other senior groups like Hospice of Charlotte, the Charlotte County Resource Center, all the other nonprofit organizations that serve seniors specifically, or adults living with disabilities. Space where everything, that's where we call it the hub, a hub of senior resources for Charlotte County.
And some of those beds you said would be transitional beds and respite beds, separate from independent permanent resident beds
Yes.
that already exist there.
So the sustainable model that we've come up with, that we see as sustainable, is the 20 rooms that are at Laura Macfarlane now. 10 of those rooms would remain as they are, independent senior living, protecting the homes of the people who live there right now. That's critically important. 8 of those rooms we would see as transitional units. So they would be for seniors who are medically cleared for discharge to the R&R program, which is Rehab and Reablement Program. Many of those seniors now have to stay in the hospital, and they miss that critical opportunity for rehabilitation because they aren't able to go home yet. Maybe a ramp needs to be built, or maybe grab bars have to be put up, or maybe social development just hasn't been able to get there to do the assessment. So this would allow those seniors who are medically discharged into that program to have that transitional housing where they receive that extramural support, 24-hour personal support worker care, clustered physiotherapy care, OT care, all of the components of that R&R program in one space, close enough to the hospital that if there were an emergency, they're not back in Graham and Ann where it's difficult to return to hospital, but where they do get that care that they need in a home environment, which is the whole point, is to rehabilitate so that you can safely go back home. 2 of the beds would be ideally respite beds, which is another huge need we have here in Charlotte County, is beds for community caregivers available for their loved ones, so that people who are caring for somebody 24 hours a day have somewhere that they can safely send their mom or dad or brother for a couple of days, so that they get a needed rest to kind of prevent that crisis caregiver burnout.
And you spoke in the meeting about, about the idea that, the assessment is 14 to 16 weeks. I think the Department of Social Development said 76 days to me. So that's a long time for someone to be waiting for the things that they need. And so there's a bit of urgency around that, I guess. So you foresee this model sort of easing the burden on that assessment and easing the burden on the wait that they're going to face?
Absolutely. So it addresses some of the crisis areas in terms of the social development assessments. At the very least, it buys time so that there's not that urgency where you get the phone call saying, this person is able to be discharged. Can you do the home assessment to see what they need? And right now, we can't do that. It doesn't happen that quickly. So our seniors are staying in those hospital beds, which backlogs everything down to emergency. It just backloads the whole system. It's a very pricey solution, what we're doing right now. So transitional units have been tried and true in other provinces. I know the province of New Brunswick has been seriously investigating that concept. So we're saying, here's the spot to do it. It's the ideal location.
This government has put a big priority on aging in place, the Nursing Home Without Walls program, and it seems to me that your plan does fit with their goals. I know that you're sort of waiting on their approval, and the wheels of government turn very slow, but do you feel optimistic about their support of what you're trying to achieve?
I feel very optimistic that at a high level of government, not just provincially but federally as well, this proposal really does fit nicely into the current mandates. Aging in place has been a priority federally for some years. This current government provincially has definitely vocalized that aging in place is a priority for them as well. So we hear about the problems with ALC, alternate level of care beds, on a daily basis, if we don't experience them on a personal level ourselves. So I think that this is a solution that meets all of those both provincial and federal mandates right now in regard to seniors.
So what's the next step for this plan? Where do you go? Where do you take the next step to?
So the next step is that we're just currently waiting for a meeting with Horizon Health, which is upcoming. I believe we're meeting with social development for a second meeting. It really does require, this proposal requires us to look at things in a way that's slightly different than what we've always done. But I think we all agree that what we've always done not only isn't working, but hasn't been working for a long time. And I think that everybody agrees to that. So, but it's asking to modify some of the systems that are in place. So, home support agencies already have existing contracts with Department of Social Development. This proposal ideally relies on intergovernmental participation. So that's not something that's particularly common in our province. It is in other areas, but it's looking at solutions in a different way. So instead of it being a social development funded project, or I shouldn't say funded, contracted, it requires us to look at things a little bit differently. But frankly, like, the biggest financial benefits are definitely to health. But the benefits to the social development system in terms of alleviating some of that crisis management that we do on a daily basis, that's immeasurable as well. So, and housing, it for obvious reasons, it fits into the housing agenda.
I want to touch just briefly that room was full of people. I saw members of current council, I saw members of former council, I saw community members. They really care about the outcome of Lana-Sarah Hall and the people who live there. And I'm wondering what it means to you and to the boards to see that support. Not only curiosity about the future, but also invested in how this moves forward.
Absolutely. So we've done this proposal. David Purcell and I have, we call it the Roadshow. We've met with different civic groups and different stakeholders and different arms of government, but locally, we haven't done this presentation yet that we haven't met with 100% support. Which is a critical element of trying something new like this. I don't think you would find anywhere in the province that would be where you would get the level of community support from, community members at large to council members to future St. Stephen. It's just everybody's on board, and it's an incredibly emotional journey for all of us. We're all very heavily invested in Lana-Sarah Hall. If not with some of the current residents, I think anybody from this area has had some personal experience at Lana-Sarah Hall. So it's very emotional, I think, for everybody. But hopefully we're going to be able to direct that in a positive fashion.
Yeah, and if I could just briefly, when this story first came to me, I remember hearing from a lot of community members, both concerned, maybe a little bit agitated, looking for answers, and social media sort of exploded into this idea that there was something going on, and I wondered about how that sort of, did that play into you saying, okay, we need to do something? How did that factor into the decision-making process here? Did it at all affect your decision-making?
It did, but in fact, it probably made me stand back a little bit because, we're talking about nonprofit organizations that are run by, overseen by volunteers. They're volunteer board members. That's a huge responsibility for a community member to take. They're professionals, and especially in a situation like Lana-Sarah Hall, those board members are somewhat restricted in how much they can communicate, because we're talking about people, and people who deserve respect and dignity, and none of us want our personal business spread all over social media. So while I understood the sentiment and agreed with the sentiment, it made me back off, because our organization is also a nonprofit. We have a wonderful board of directors. And as somebody in my position, I thought that that's an unfair position to put those people in. And should I, involve our board and put them possibly in that position? Because to come up with a solution like this, or any solution, it's trying something different, because what's there doesn't work. So there's no guarantees. There's no guarantees in life, but I can tell you that we have the most committed group of people working on this, and it's Charlotte County. And when we all pull together, we can get stuff done. So it made me a little bit nervous, but I also appreciated the sentiment.
Does that create pressure for you? Because one of the questions in there was, about the future and sort of how that works. So does that pressure sit with you a little bit more heavier as you work toward coming to this solution?
It does, but that pressure's been there from day one. That pressure was there before Lana-Sarah Hall. I work with seniors, vulnerable seniors, every single day. I feel that pressure every single day. So all of us, I can say that the Home Support Services Board and team, the employees, it sits with us every day, And these are issues, this is a bigger scale, but these are the same issues that we deal with in this client's home this day and with this client's family the next day. Same issues, just Lana-Sarah Hall just kind of encapsulates a lot of the issues that we deal with, that our seniors are dealing with every day.
I know that the finish line may not be in sight, but do you think about what it will feel like when you do have that answer, when you're in the room and you're able to say, yes, this is the future and this is the model that we're gonna bring to you?
I think it will just be relief. You know, I understand the family of the residents, the frustration that was expressed in the meeting tonight. I completely understand it. I feel it. You know, a lot of this process is out of our control. We have to work with other agencies. We have to work with government. We don't get to determine those timelines. I and a lot of folks involved, we're all perfectly happy to work until midnight, 7 days a week.
We share
and
that,
they
and
probably are as well, just not on one sole issue. So I think relief and satisfaction, really. I feel really, personally, I feel a really strong, the Ganong family motivates me. You know, we live in the last 20 years, we've lost a lot of manufacturing in New Brunswick because it's, quite frankly, it's cheaper to do business elsewhere. And there aren't a lot of, the Ganong family stayed. This town is built around the Ganong factory. It was part of building this community and this county. And I feel a really strong motivation to honor that commitment with my own commitment to this project.
And, you know, you talked a little bit about our aging population, and I know I hear that a lot when I'm speaking with members of government, and how important it is to take care of those folks. They gave us this province. It's built on their backs.
Yeah.
And so why is it so important to make sure that when they're in their last stages of their life, that it's in a place with dignity and respect, and it feels like home?
There's probably a really great answer to that. What I can say, my personal answer, and I think about this often, you know, I've started my life here in Charlotte County, but I've lived in quite a few provinces and I've traveled quite a bit internationally. And I realize, you know, when I think about being a youngster on Duke Street, and I can still remember my neighbors, and they were primarily senior citizens, and we grew up being taught in Charlotte County to be respectful and being told the stories of their lives. I think that it's intrinsically part of New Brunswick and specifically part of Charlotte County that we have a deep desire. We've always cared for our seniors, and we're not doing a great job of it right now. And you know, they built every bit of privilege that I have or any of us have came from those before us. So I feel a personal responsibility to make sure that we're sustaining that environment that is so intrinsic to Charlotte County, where we look after our own.
Thank you for joining me today, Laura. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
My guest today has been Laura Macfarlane, the Executive Director of Home Support Services. I'm Natalie Sturgeon, and thanks for watching Southwest Magazine.
Southwest Magazine is a news and public affairs production of CHCO Television.